Hype can be a dangerous feeling. We all have those moments of feeling hyped for something that looks promising, but once they don't meet its expectation, then we can be really disappointed. To be honest, I didn't have too much expectation when going in this time around. Examples like Kakeguri, I didn't think too highly of it, and after it was done, it was decent. Nothing that blows my expectation away, so I came out with an expected outcome. It all comes down to experiencing the potential while watching, only to never reach it. It's a little challenging to place them in order because they all have the same ground of disappointment. I didn't go crazy over them only to be critically let down by the end. It's more like, oh, you got something good. Oh, wait, no, you done wrong. Remember, disappointing doesn't always mean the series is bad. Here are the 5 disappointing anime of 2017. This one is high on the list because I thought it was a good series in its own rights. This is probably the only one in the list that I actually feel disappointed because this is technically a sequel. So the hype came from the predecessor. It's easily to be disappointed. A decade ago, there was a devastating colossal dragon known as Bahamut that demolished the world. Humans, gods, and demons joined together to end the terror, and the world is in peace. Until the present time, the King Chartius the 17th has stolen a power from the gods and controls the demons into slavery, while the humans live in peace. A cheerful young bounty hunter, Nina, arrives at the royal capital and hoping to live in peace, but suddenly bumps into the Rag Demon, who is setting up to wage war against humans and the king. The conflict between humans, gods, and demons continues. I saw Rage of Bahamut for the first time this year because I want to know if it's good. After watching it, I was pretty entertained, so you know where my disappointment comes from. Even if I don't take that into account, I was still let down by the end. I thought the story was going well. I was intrigued with the confliction between all 3 races, especially with the demons. The lore itself was expanded, and although the series stays mainly in the same location, there are plenty of aspects that will leave you interested. The whole dictatorship of Chartius was interesting on how much of a tyrant and cruel he can be, yet has a persona of someone else, like a complete stranger. For 24 episodes, it could have worked really well. That is until the plot twist and some of character's decision gets shaky. Without giving away, there is a hidden agenda behind the whole cause of dictatorship, and it doesn't really match up well with everything. The best I can say is that it's an excuse to view the king differently. The series went on for a while, let alone his supremacy, so the twist is hard to buy into the mess it now made. Because of it, it ruined the experience and the story, creating a false sympathy for something we didn't know we were building up for. It sadly connects to the characters, the new ones that is, because Nina and Chartius aren't the main characters. As you may notice, they are opposite as in good and bad. However, it's somewhat a Romeo and Juliet storyline. On one hand, it could have been sweet and nice to see the chemistry being formed. On the other hand, because of how many moments we have to witness cruel and corrupted deeds, it begins to falter. While one don't abuse another, Charlie has certainly done so to everyone else. The focus becomes uneven as it enters the second half, and everything takes a slow turn in a good and bad way. While there are more nice character moments, there are other parts that I couldn't care anymore because of the background. The romance did take over, and it was at the point that it's hard to be awed by it. Again, it reflects back to the conflict within the story. The ending is oddly cheery for a place that has been savage for so long, but I guess it was a good ending, more or less. It is a bit better than the first series, I think. I don't really remember much, but it's not as rewarding. If anything, it does leave lore on a cliffhanger note to see how their next encounter will take them. I don't hate the series, but I can see why people would be utterly disappointed. I still enjoy the good parts that can be really good. I like the whole demon conflict and struggle to regain their freedom, which is ironic. The fact the old cast returns here make it entertaining like the first, especially Favoro. There are also fun adventurous moments that are similar to the first part. The presentation is still solid for the most part as well. Could it have been better than what we got? Definitely. I would still give a possible third part a chance, but the expectation is minimized. It's a shame that at the very beginning, it has some promising and amusing elements that I wouldn't mind. I would have thought the series is Konosuba with school education on magic. Sadly, it became clear by halfway that it's going to be disappointing. And sure enough, it is. The Alzano Imperial Magic Academy is one of the most distinguished magic schools in the world. Sistine, along with her best friend Rumiya, attend the academy to cultivate their magical skills. However, a lazy teacher, Glenn Radar, takes over a sudden retired assigned teacher, and the anticipation goes down the drain. To make matters worse, Glenn becomes questionable as a teacher when the student learn how he is awful at magic. How can they succeed at the academy? I don't know why I was anticipated in the first place. It's mainly due to the first episode being amusing and charming. Glenn starts off promising because of his attitude. Even if it is indifferent from the rest, usually it's done by someone who is largely an overpowered character. But he actually has his faults that beg the question why he is a teacher at a high-tier academy. The first episode sets the tone to be comical, and that's fine. The second episode got me interested because that's when the magic teaching ensues, and surprisingly, I was invested on how the system works. It's pretty neat to watch a series that really invests itself with its self-created magic lessons. I like how they present the magic calling as essential to its power and scaling. More of this would have me liking the series a lot. With the added comedy and fun characters at start, I would be enjoying this and ask for more. Well, that was my first impression. If you ask me, the whole dark tone story aspect shouldn't happen so soon nor takes over the first set of tone. In fact, it largely goes on a fast pace and it shows. The arc itself gets done really fast, and many of Lost Time could have explored more of his characters and lore expansion. When it's over, it goes to the next one immediately and new hijinks ensues. The impression of Glenn in the first episode should have continued longer before becoming students' favorite. It could have given his winning the student's heart more meaningful and rewarding rather than him by episode 3 sounded like he has deep connection with the students when he barely knows all of them and didn't have enough time to teach in a greater detail. Sure, his personality remains the same more or less, it's the comedy opportunity that was sorely missed. The teaching procedures is sidelined and it becomes another series where things looks peaceful and then evil comes barging in and you know the rest. It should have remained in the school space and wait longer before hitting the dark aspect. As for those, they're interesting, but it's more of a setup and introduction to some piece of the main story. I think if the arcs took its time, it would have done better as a whole. The characters are nice though, they just got to have more time to explore depth and personality outside of the first impression, which is funny since Glenn got out of it but should have gone on longer. Oh well, the art and animation is pretty decent, even though I do question on the girls' uniform designs. It's a harmless show that you can find joy in here. I was fine with it, it just sounded like it could have been a fun comedy, nice slice of life moments, and intriguing magic education. Perhaps the light novels is better, but who knows. Not the Magic Academy I was hoping for. To be honest, this series can be seen as in filling the gap on the list. I didn't have so much expectation going in, but I decided to watch it and see what intrigues the audience. It was going fine from the very beginning, but then it just becomes a bore. The 12-12, yeah that's what it says, tournament held every 12 years gathers 12 brave warriors who bear the names of the signs of the zodiac: rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, and pig. They battle each other in a death match. The winner will have one wish to be granted, whatever their wish may be. Who will be the final survivor? The real question is, can you make it any more obvious? I know what I was going in, when it's pretty much a death battle series, meaning the plot is non-existent and it has a narrow focus to deliver the bloodbath. My disappointment drive comes from the fact that I wanted a series to be entertaining with the action, characters, and see who would come out victorious. It's been so long since Battle Royale that I have that type of enjoyment. This series didn't deliver. I know it's cheating since this series hasn't really ended yet, but it technically did. I won't spoil here, but let's just say the ending won't salvage the overall. It was entertaining to see them representing their signs, and if you research them, they closely present them well. Their designs are mostly good, save for some questionable choices. Their abilities are pretty cool, as they all vary from each other, making them identifiable. So what went wrong? The problem is, the series with a simple clear-cut premise made it simpler, and by that, I mean how it delivers its content and expect the expected. It certainly surprised some people to see a character die within the first episode, even after a backstory. That was going well, until it decided to do it over, and over, and over again. Don't get me wrong, I'm not disturbed by deaths or violence. It's the formula becomes way too easy to follow and ruins the tension that it had. What's the point of the death battle if you can predict every single piece of the scenario? While how they will get killed is a mystery, is who will die next is easily predicted, and that ruins the flow of excitement. I guessed every single one of them, and when it happens, it's like, oh, okay. You can actually know by watching that part of an episode. I feel like I should prevent myself from giving everything away. It's laughable that one time, the series actually pulled a twist on the scenario by not eliminating anyone, only to kill them in 3 episodes later in the same order. Now that's hilarious. If the removal of tension is bad, the characters are another problem. They all have their own backstory, but barely interesting. Well, with the exception of perhaps 2 or 3 characters. It has the formula of comes and goes in an immediate fashion. Everyone dies as soon as they're technically introduced. The action can be fun, which is good, though most, if not all the time, they are finished in an anticlimactic style. I don't know if it's the weak backstory or how it's easy to guess, but their end lacks impact. The animation can be good at certain times, but there are some noticeable odd 3D animation moments during standing still. The series does get better by the end, but not a whole lot. I just find the series boring. When a new episode airs, I lack motivation to watch it. Not worth clapping my hands. An isekai universe comes to Earth instead of a person goes to the former? It sounds like a fun concept. Ray Creators fits the criteria and it delivers on the ideal approach. Does it deliver on a great execution level? Not necessarily. Sota is a high school student who aspires to be such a creator by writing and illustrating his own light novel. He watches an anime for inspiration until he randomly enters the world itself and finds himself in a collision between 2 fictional characters. Once he returns home, the heroine from the anime has come along with him to the real world. More and more fictional characters continue to appear, but there is a military uniform princess that is far beyond powerful, unlike no other. The fictional characters, along with their creators, have to work together to return back home. This series was aiming to be a really joyful ride. It's a fun premise with many varieties of characters from many different source materials, which sounds like it can bring a lot of possibility to work with. It doesn't have to be a complex drama story, it is aiming for a summer blockbuster film level. It's like 2017 version of Carbonara of the Iron Fortress. Well, it's exactly like that. Another disappointment. When it began, the story was going normally and simple, with many fictional characters being introduced and they have their personalities based on how they are written. For example, Celestia is based off a popular series that was adapted into anime, and her character is portrayed as a strong hero and warrior with an apprentice approach, meaning she will act like a young learner. Another one is with that kid named Rudy, who is based off a mecha series, so it's pretty much a Gundam series. That is pretty amusing. I also like the concept of how to improve a fictional character with its set of rules, and it all relies on the creator themselves. Among the rules, the writing has to make sure it is consistent and not out of nowhere in order for a new development to be confirmed. It's a fun, engaging way to set up new possibilities with one character in power, as well as establish a bond between the creator and the creation. It's a straightforward yet enjoyable idea that could fill in the relaxation anime gap. Unfortunately, it seems like the writer was trying too hard to make things complex, yet it becomes convoluted. It developed a plot hole or so, while the series continues to unfold the mystery of the main villain. You try to remember if that's logical according to the established rule. It was fine on how it was, so why they had to go so deep to try to establish the cause of the villain's strength? My main issue is the pacing. I feel like this was made to be a 12 episodic series or one core, if not around 14 to 16 episodes. It's true that the series begins slowly with the introduction and the world building, or bringing their world to collide with reality, but I didn't mind so much. It was fun seeing how the writer conveys the premise of each character with different background, whether it's a villain, a detective, a magic user, and so on. Around episode 18, I realized that the last half is pretty much a dragged out climax from the first half. The last half is what ruined the joy I had from the first half. It all focused on defeating the final villain, and it's done in a very slow pace. It's probably because it has to introduce more characters to the mix, and it stretches out with the action, and the tension keeps on faltering. It doesn't help that some of the characters are underdeveloped, and some instantly change side without actual hint or convincing argument. We supposed to take it in and roll with it, even though I feel like I skipped an episode that builds up that twist. On top of that, it has way too many exposition. It wants to be perfectly clear on why they have to do it and how it is happening, even though it could have been dealt under 3 sentences. Maybe that's the punchline, seeing how all of these creators are writers, but I wouldn't know. It just keeps on dragging the pacing down, stuck in the same position for nearly entire episode run. I would give them a credit that it still offers some entertaining value, especially if you do just roll with it with this convoluted explanation. The characters, albeit being underdeveloped, do offer the fun aspects with their diverse personality and amusing connections with their creators. Sota, the protagonist, isn't bad either. Started a bit rough, but developed enough to be acceptable. The action is what the series does deliver to a certain extent, and it shines because of their background. You encounter an overpowered warrior going against a mecha. You will encounter a magical schoolgirl going against a gunman. It's bizarre, yet fun to see them clash. Some may be nonsense, but I'll be lying if I say I didn't have fun. The soundtrack is pretty good as well. Oh, it's done by Hiroyuki Sawano. That explains everything. It really is Carbonaro 2017 edition. The art and animation is actually pretty good, and with the series filled with fighting, it's reassuring to know. I thought the ending is nice as well. Then again, there is one character that is oddly concluded like filler, and it so happened that you have to purchase the manga to find out more. Marketing for the win, I guess. There are plenty of good points to enjoy, but the bad does make it a bit uneven. Some would argue that it's the worst series of the year. Yeah, okay. If you ignore everything but that, I will believe you. It's a fun premise that was harbored with unnecessary inserted ideas while forgetting some of the first draft. It should be recreated. Imagine sex as the epitome of a series, let alone the main driving force of the characters, and it's done in a serious manner. You may find it weird, but honestly, it can be done in a really good way. It just takes a writer's talent to make it happen. Unfortunately, Scum's Wish is not that case. Hanabi and Mugi are the perfect couple, or so what the outsider would think. They are in relationship because they have the same dilemma as they are in love with someone they cannot be with. Hanabi is in love with her childhood friend and neighbor Nanumi, and Mugi is in love with the music teacher Akane. The real reason on why they got into a relationship is to stave off their loneliness, so they share physical intimacy with one another. It's the first anime that got people roaring. What a way to set up my disappointment. It sounds like an easy opening to make joke about the concept. But you know, this could have been a real mature experience anime. The series is heavy on the monologue, so the interactions don't occur that often outside of physical contact. And that's fine. It's all presented within their personal feelings. The struggle and pain of not receiving the love of their life is actually interesting, albeit arguably unnecessary to the main center focus that it does dive in with different varieties of characters, including lesbian and incest. It portrays how many of these characters have to endure the pain of unrequited love and how they may never get their happy ending. It could have been a tear-jerking experience with characters you can relate and understand their misery. Sadly, it didn't meet my expectation. The story sounds like it could have been settled for half the season length, because when it stretches out, it loses its focus. The main characters in somewhere in the middle to near end is more of an object to endure for the side characters, rather than themselves getting any remotely development. As mentioned earlier, tackling the dilemma in all sorts of variety can slow down the character-driven plot, including dealing with characters that comes and goes within an episode or two. The idea of starting the series with detestable characters is very challenging, and while I don't expect them to be all goody two-shoes by the end, it hurts the characters in writing perspective. You can write them negatively in the beginning and don't have them converted as a newly reborn person. The problem is the delivery comes down to trying to be mature and complex, only to be acting like mature and head-scratching complex. If the delivery doesn't match well with his attention, it can damage the writing a lot. A minor complaint of mine is how strange the comedic tone is presented with his art design or atmosphere. For example, the first episode has comical facial expression like rage or deformed body for comedic fashion. After that, it's all serious, melodramatic, and in a sense, edgy. So when the comedy reappears after a large portion of the middle, it seems out of place and no longer sink in well to its theme. It's like the writer couldn't make up her mind. The ending is pretty underwhelming. Somehow it feels like the writer just wanted to end it and get the characters out soon as possible. It's a shame because it had a build-up for something enticing and perhaps the breaking point of the entire theme. But nope, it just ended in an anticlimactic way. I know the target audience is more grounded than shonen or shoujo series, but because of his failed attempt to be complex, it comes off as a mess. One character got away big time. I won't spoil, but it's really strange. I know these types of series don't end in happily ever after, but the way how it was written is inexcusable. Don't be surprised that people find it insulting. It makes it harmful that we were supposed to be sympathetic and cheery when that character gets a closure. It only overrides the accomplishment of every character, even if there is none. The good parts are the visual, and they are seriously good. When it wants to be that deep, its presentation is the best example of that. It's not the greatest animation, but its visual is really pretty, and the capture of the emotion of his tone can be stunning. The sound also helps a lot. It's the portrayal act that leads to a defining moment of their character. When it's done well, it's captivating. When it's not, it's jarring. Scum's Wish is not the worst anime I ever seen, and it's funny yet weird that they're calling it School Days 2.0. Huh, I guess you can call it that with substance. Joking aside, it was an ambitious attempt, I'll give them that. It's challenging for people who may find these characters the worst, or disgusting at least. So I won't try to persuade when not much good points come out of it. The presentation is strong, and some of his moments with characters are good, but the bad outweighs them. It could have been more, but in the end, it's my #1 disappointing anime of 2017.